Thanks for tuning in to Season 4 of Strange, Rare, and Peculiar Homeopathy Podcast, where homeopathy lives, breathes, and evolves with Denise Straiges and Alastair Gray. We'll be exploring modern practice, research, and philosophy, from Hahnemann's radical insights to today's breakthroughs and discoveries. Get ready for homeopathy woes, feedback from pros, and the more you knows.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good evening.
Today is a really exciting day.
And good afternoon.
It's exciting.
Why is it exciting?
Because it's our 100th podcast.
Oh my God, there's been 100?
100.
We're no longer... Are we talking to ourselves? Are we singing to ourselves?
Probably. Hey, this is really exciting. 100 podcasts in the can. Thank you to all of you who are listening. And now that we've done it 100 times, we're going to remember to say, please subscribe. Subscribe. Is that? Yeah, follow, subscribe, whatever.
Just ring the bell.
Yeah. And tell your friends if you are someone who's interested in the real, true homeopathy.
And if you are a naughty listener and sets this to...
double speed.
That must make your voice...
Oh my gosh, like Mickey Mouse. I listened to the last one we did with Carly, and I realized that for some reason, and I don't know why, but I sound like I'm talking so fast when the one with Carly and the one with Lisa Amarine. And those were recorded on Zoom. And you know what? And the same thing, the one with Rachel Doherty. So it must have something to do with me getting excited when there's a new person and I'm on Zoom. Anyway.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, don't say anything.
Yeah, okay.
We are recording from our guest bedroom because once again, the plumber is here. I'd love to hear from people who live in houses that are over 150 years old. What's your plumbing like? Right now, we had to abandon our usual recording spot because he's taking part of our kitchen ceiling down to try and figure out why it rains in there.
It's hole drilling time.
It's just
anyway, so if you hear some sort of muffled drilling or hollering
or creaking, because we're huddled around the microphone on a bed. Anyway, but because this is our 100th episode, we have got an amazing conversation to have. Are you ready?
It's you're anticipatory, but I think it's like the proof of the amazingness should be in the eating, not in the anticipation.
Okay, whatevs. No, all right. No, so we have been talking a lot on this podcast about, this season 4. This is season 4. Yeah, season 4 is all about truth and really wanting to explore homeopathy for what it is. And by doing so, we really hope to inspire you to give it more thought, not just more excitement. I love homeopathy and I'll just do it, but rather to think about what it is and how it got to be this, and how is it that this medicine has sustained for 230 years. It doesn't go away. But the times when it has totally lost its footing and crashed and burned have been in the times when misinterpretations and misappropriations reigned. And so our goal is to get enough momentum about the real homeopathy so that we all work together to do it as well as we can, to help as many people as we can. And hopefully we'll inspire the folks who are hell-bent and determined to make it up. So that they, instead of making up their own thing, start thinking about Hahnemann. Because I have a little litmus test. You know what my litmus test is, don't you?
I have no idea.
So unless a person is proficient in 12 to 15 languages, including ancient Aramaic, and unless they can extract spirit from matter, I don't want them to change this. or do you know what I mean? Like, Hahnemann had some mad skills. What do you think about that?
I actually do like it. If you've got 9 languages or if you speak 7 languages, you're still probably able to weigh on in.
Right. 7 language people, we're not dissing on you.
Yeah, exactly. But what you're saying is that Hahnemann was no ordinary character. He wasn't making stuff up. No. And to deviate massively, deviate astronomically, and in the ways that we that are sometimes visible, and still under the guise of homeopathy, is it's unfortunate. Yeah.
Well, and the reason is, it would be one thing if it were just opinion. Like, for example, there are different ways that people throw pottery. I'll just use that example. For whatever reason, because I'm left-handed, people always teach me things in a funny way. And I've had people who are, amazing potters look at what I do and they're like, what are you doing? Because I throw with the wheel going in reverse, which is Japanese style in some ways, except that I use sort of the hand movements that are indicative of an American potter.
It's very interesting you say that.
But I don't give anybody a medicine. It's like, whether or not I throw on a wheel going one direction or another, or whether or not, I can make any changes I want. I can riff on it however I want. And it has nothing to do with children who have serious diseases and me giving them a medicine.
Yeah.
Does that analogy hold water?
Well, it does. For me, it does now. I'm involved in this ongoing kind of community-wide conversation about AI in homeopathy. And it occurred to me that so much of the conversation is around a fascination with a new system.
Yeah.
Oh, this research assistant could help me organize all of my thoughts that have been spinning around for the last 8 years. I'm going to ask AI to assist me in doing this. Brilliant, right? But as soon as you start then asking an untested tool to make a clinical decision that you are going to follow and you have a sick person in front of you, that's different.
Ethically, that is really.
I think it sounds so, just in this example, if we run with it for a second, because the results that AI gives you sound authoritative, people seem to forget that everyone knows that it makes up findings, it makes up rubrics, it makes up references. Yeah.
And it changes its mind.
And it flips and flops.
Yeah.
Mr. Flippy Floppy.
Yeah.
And the sources it relies on are extremely average.
At best.
So as soon as you put a sick child into that conversation, I'm with you 128,000%.
How did we get to this? And look, I completely understand. I was having a conversation with one of our students the other day on a dog walk, and her kid has a complex diagnosis, and she entered into homeopathy through the social media doorway. Or actually, no, I'm telling a lie. She saw a practitioner, but the practitioner was prescribing in a way that was, on reflection, not particularly aligned, let's say not aligned at all with what would be best practices.
Can I just let you know that the dog is having a dream? Right now.
I know, I hear her. so now more noises to add to it. So the creaking of the bed, the noise of the plumber, and the dog going whoop, whoop, whoop in her sleep. My God, we're so professional.
The dog is chasing a rabbit. Oh, she is too. Look at her.
Yeah.
Oh,
anyway,
wow.
Okay. So, but this woman said something to me that really it landed in my heart, which was, when you have a sick child, you'll do anything. And through desperation to help your kid, you'll try anything. And one of the things that is always said about homeopathy is that it can't hurt you. And I think that we have to have a qualifier, which is, when used appropriately, it can't hurt you. And as we've been talking about, until the past couple of years, neither of us, and we've asked this of our colleagues, no one had seen people harmed by homeopathy. The worst we ever saw was a banger of an aggravation.
An
which was
aggravation.
also often followed by a really profound amelioration.
Oh, I would say my best aggravations.
You talking about the lady with her head in the freezer?
The woman that had to put her head in the freezer for relief.
We talked about her on here.
Did we?
Yeah,
All right.
just recently.
There you go. Well, in that case, I have a short-term memory challenge.
Believe me, I know. Anyway, so here's what I wanted to do today, because I've got all my notes here. Schlep them up to the guest room.
Can I preface this with an experience that I had that relates to you?
Why not? Oh, as relates to me? I don't know. I was about to say why not, but...
Well, because I think at some point you're going to mention the latest edition of Homeopathy Today.
Well, and we talked about that before as well.
Yeah. So I opened up the latest. I don't even know why I opened it, but anyway, I did. And I flipped through the pages and I saw page 5.
Yeah.
And I went, I can't show Denise this. I cannot show Denise this.
Right, her blood
She's
pressure.
going to go apoplectic, because I actually worry about your health.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
And it was a health-related, I need to hide this from Denise. And I lasted about a week, I think.
I know.
And then I just couldn't. And so does that have anything to do with the...
It does. Well, explain what you're talking about.
Well, when it comes to anything, you want to know what you're talking about. At least you want to be able to define the conversation, refine the conversation. So if we're going to be talking about,
The truth.
I was going to say the quality of the farmers market, then you want to understand what a farmers market is. You want to, be able to refine the conversation, or at least create some boundaries around it.
Sometimes you go to a farmer's market and it's more like an art fair.
Right, exactly.
Or it's more like a flea market and they're selling tube socks.
Exactly.
Do you know what the term tube sock?
Never until I met you.
Okay. They just don't have a heel.
Which means that they're not a sock.
Go on.
So when it comes to homeopathy, forever, the primary principle in homeopathy undoubtedly has been similars. It's in the title, It's in the name.
Yeah.
It defines who we are, what we do, and we are essentially followers of the application of the principle of similars.
Yes.
And then around that, now I know that you have 4
I know, and you
principles,
have 7.
and I have 7, and sometimes 9.
But
when I get on a roll,
core principles, because people don't remember 9 things, but they can certainly remember 4. And if you stick to the core 4, you're there. 1 remedy at a time for the largest totality of symptoms that can be perceived, and that large totality could be small, right? It's the largest. Actually, it shouldn't be. It should be the appropriate totality, because
the most meaningful
totality. Okay, I'm gonna alter what I say. 1 remedy at a time for the most meaningful totality, prescribed according to the law of similars and given in the minimum dose to begin the healing.
So, you start with similars. You start with
but I
single...
do it just because I like the cadence of that.
See, it's all about rhythm. It's not... for me, it's not a social security number.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, wait. I'm sorry. We have to digress for a second. This makes me absolutely insane. Okay, so if I
want to mess you up, I know exactly how to do it.
So everybody knows that in America, the Social Security number goes da 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 da. Right? But so what Al does is, if I say, "Can you tell me your Social Security number?" like filling out a form or whatever, he goes da 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 da. Like I can't. It makes my brain just want to explode. Yeah. It's hilarious. And the same with phone numbers. You'll occasionally try to do that, but you really know how to get me with the Social Security number. Anyway,
so the cadence. I appreciate the cadence is important for you. But if we're going, just as a point of order, if we're going in terms of hierarchy of importance, then
similarity has to be first.
Good. And then the others. On page 5 of Homeopathy Today, we noticed that there'd been a typo, an accidental typo.
It can't be a typo because they have the principles of the first 4 principles. They only have 3 of them, and they're in giant bubbles. So unless one of the bubbles fell off the page,
the bubble fell off the page.
Yeah.
So the NCH have removed the single remedy from that which defines the practice of homeopathy.
And fair enough, because they are trying to boost their membership and they want the polypharmacy people to join.
And fair enough?
Okay.
Wow. All
well,
right.
I mean, fair enough. Everybody gets to choose. However, my my feeling is that I don't feel like it's my job to change the principles of healing that have served us for 230 years. So I'm going to take this one step further, because the reason we decided to do our 100th episode around the idea of the single remedy is because one of the folks that works with us, she has a much stronger constitution than I when it comes to Facebook homeopathy, what I call the Munchausen's mama groups, where everybody is on there trading advice on how many pills you can give your kid every stinking day. People feel empowered by it. I think it's completely disempowering and it's over pathologizing, but anyway, don't let me start preaching. Anyway, so, and she started to notice that they're like fighting, or maybe they're always fighting and I just don't look at it, but people argue these points without any data. So one of the arguments around the single remedy versus throw the sink at it is people are saying, well, cases are more complex than in Hahnemann's time, or Hahnemann would have changed his mind over time, or various and other sundry things. So because I'm a gal who likes a primary source, I gathered some for our 100th podcast. But I think that it's a really easy, this single remedy idea is so simple in terms of how homeopathy actually works, that I think even though we know we prescribe according to similarity as the core principle, obviously, right, that's homeo, but I think that the philosophy, the core idea, the ways in which homeopathy is based on the laws of the universe, it can only be true through the single remedy. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, so one of the things we have to do is we have to myth bust, first of all, because people are also on Facebook and on the internet saying that Hahnemann prescribed more than one remedy. So we can actually solve this one really quickly. So Hahnemann had a hot second where he was looking at trials around two remedies, two suitably combined remedies given in an olfactory dose. Now, if you follow his trajectory, you will understand a couple of things based on the footnote in the 6th edition of the Organon to 273? Yeah, footnote to 273, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, what we're going to do is we will talk about the fact that Hahnemann, even if we take it at face value that he tried two remedies, which is not what this is about. Mm-hmm. Right? But let's say that he did, because I think that's a cheap interpretation, right? If you read the footnote, it's about combining mineral salts.
In other words, why are you people getting so precious about the single remedy? Even the founder tried it and did it.
So I have a couple of letters that Hahnemann wrote to his buddy Bonninghausen. The first one is from June 17th, 1833, where he does say that he made a beginning with smelling two suitably combined remedies and hoped to have some good results. And he had dedicated a special paragraph in the 5th edition of the Organon to that. He then, on the 15th of September, same year, 1833, so from July to September.
And August, so 2 months later.
He says he was told a short time ago that it had become known to Hoofland, probably through the printer, from my manuscript of the 5th edition of the Organon, that I have taken up treating with two medicines, and he is already rejoicing at the fact that homeopathy will have to return at last into the bosom of the only saving church, and would again have to join the old science, as it is never, as we know, absolutely necessary, although at times advantageous, to prescribe for the patient a double remedy, and the advantage gained from the exposition of this sometimes useful method, as I see, greatly overbalanced by the disadvantage which would certainly arise from a misinterpretation by the allopaths and allo-homeopaths. I love this. Hahnemann refers to people who are using homeopathy in a way that's more aligned with allopathy. He calls them the allo homeopaths.
But he's saying, I did it, there's advantages, but the advantages are massively outweighed
Yeah, but
by the disadvantages.
massively outweighed. He says, I have, with your approval, I feel sure, had the manuscript sent back to me, and I've put everything back integrum, and also added a reprimand against such a proceeding, so that the Orthodox Pope of the old school will be considerably upset when he sees in the Organon a publication which will make his rejoicing melt away. I know you approve of my action. I think here it's important for us to just talk about who Hufeland is. And so Hufeland was, do you say Hufeland or Hufeland? Probably Hufeland.
I didn't even hear the difference between the first and the second options.
Hufeland.
Hufeland. Yeah, I would give it a Hugh.
Hufeland.
Yes.
So he was, at first, he published
Give it a Hugh.
Hahnemann's works, and then he had a change of heart, and he went all allopathy. And so even though he had been a proponent of Hahnemann's, then they got into an argument, and then maybe they didn't get into an argument, but he basically said, no, they're no longer, Hufeland was no longer a proponent of homeopathy. Okay, now he says, he writes again to Bonninghausen. This is October 1833, so just a month later.
Just a note, folks. That means he's 78 years old.
Mm-hmm. Your eloquence would have easily persuaded me if I had been in your position, that is, if I had been as much convinced as you are from a large experience of the possibility and even great utility of giving double remedies. But from many attempts of this kind, only one or two have been successful. 1 or 2 times. So Hahnemann did many experiments giving 2 remedies, not 15, 2. And he says, which is, he's only had 1 or 2 attempts be successful, which is insufficient for the incontrovertible establishing of a new rule. I was, therefore, too inexperienced in this practice to support it with full conviction. Consequently, it required only a slight momentum to induce me to alter that passage in the new Organon, which results in this, that I concede the possibility that 2 well-chosen remedies may be given together with advantage in some cases, but that this seems to be a very difficult and doubtful method. And in this way, I believe I have done justice to truth on the one side and to my inner conviction on the other. I should be sorry if in that way I have received too much from your wishes.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And then he writes Paris, September 18th, 1836.
So he's now 81 and he's met Melanie. Yeah,
and he says, is it true with Dr. Foysak tells me that you have written to him and said that you now give 2 remedies together to your patients with much success? ? Has not even Egidi, after, how do you say that? Egidi, yeah. After much reflection, abandoned such an abnormal heresy.
An abominable heresy.
An abominable.
An abdominal.
That's what it says an abdominal. I don't think it's abdominal. Heresy, which gives the death blow to true homeopathy and throws it back to blind allopathy. Let me read that again. Has not even Egidi, after much reflection, abandoned such an abominable heresy. He's talking about just giving 2 remedies. Which gives the death blow to true homeopathy and throws it back to blind allopathy? No joke here, okay? So, in the 6th edition of the Organon, well, let's read the 5th. So, it's Aphorism 273, 5th edition. It is not conceivable how the slightest dubiety could exist as to whether it was more consistent with nature and more rational to prescribe a single well-known medicine at one time in a disease or a mixture of several differently acting drugs. Okay, then I guess if that wasn't good enough, in the 6th edition, he says it in a way that's so much clearer. He says, quote, in no case under treatment is it necessary and therefore not permissible to administer to a patient more than one single simple medicinal substance at one time. It is inconceivable how the slightest doubt could exist as to whether it was more consistent with nature and more rational to prescribe a single simple medicine at one time in a disease or a mixture of several differently acting drugs. It is absolutely not allowed in homeopathy The one true, simple, and natural art of healing to give the patient at one time 2 different medicinal substances. So, I mean, I don't know that we could be any more clear.
Well, I think there's clarity there. Let me give you an example. Burnett, in one of his great cases, goes to the deathbed of a dying man with an abdominal tumor that went from under his rib on the left side and attached to the hip bone. A tumor that was like essentially the size of a basketball. And he'd been seen by 6 other professionals, all of whom had failed in the treatment, and this was the last, Hail Mary. And Burnett said, I didn't know, I did my best. I did my physical examination. I didn't know exactly what I was dealing with, so I gave 2 remedies. And he gave Ceanothus, and he gave Ballus perennis. He gave Ballus perennis and Ceanothus, and I knew that as I did it, I would lose a learning opportunity. And then he goes on to describe the cure, or the eventual cure, and the successful treatment with this guy, and says, I can't say anything more about it because I've lost the opportunity. You can never learn with more than one remedy at a time.
Which is really important because the thing is, what you're talking about is, Burnett is talking about the outcome. How can you gauge what was effective by the outcome if you don't know what actually brought you to that outcome? But what I'm going to bring us to is Hahnemann's coming at it from the other way, right? So we can look at it from the outcome, case management. You can't manage a case if you don't know what the remedy did, right? So, for example, when I teach the follow-up, right? The follow-up appointment is more important than the initial consultation. Well, I mean, I guess that's that it's a complex thing, but in the follow-up, right? We teach the students, you have to look at what's better, what's worse, what hasn't changed, what's new. So basically, the follow-up appointment is an assessment of the action of the remedy. Well, if you gave more than one remedy, you have no idea.
Well, you've lost all ability to manage a case.
Totally. And I think the Burnett example is so good because it acknowledges that with this particular tumor, he wasn't sure. So he gave Bellus perennis ostensibly because of the abdominal location.
And the etiology.
Yeah. So he says he lost the opportunity. So that would be an opportunity to understand the action of a drug, right? But Hahnemann is coming at it from a different place. And actually, I'm going to use Kent as an example to make that point. But before we move on to that, I just want to bring something up here, which is the footnote to Aphorism 273 in the 6th edition of the Organon. It gives us a clue about why Hahnemann was actually attempting the 2-remedy idea. And I think I have this right, but this is a conversation I would like to have with the chemists, because what I think he's doing here, remember, Hahnemann is a chemist, but you have to remember also where chemistry was in his day. So AHE students who might be listening, the semester 3 students, we studied the periodic table this week, right? And we talked about Dmitry Mendeleev, who was the first to create the framework of what is now the periodic table of the elements. And he developed this model of predictive patterning. In other words, he looked at the elements that had already been isolated. He put them in order by atomic weight. And then based on the pattern of those elements, he could, with confidence, know that there were elements still to be discovered and what the particular characteristics of those were going to be. So when we studied Mendeleev, we also looked at, it at different times, science only had access to so many materials, so many elements. So Hahnemann, as a chemist, was ahead of his time, and he was combining both the most modern understanding of chemistry with the ancient applications of chemistry. So, for example, in this same lecture where I was teaching about the periodic table, it's a part of a suite that we do on critical thinking in contemporary practices and materia medica. And so one of the things that I do is I go from this linear, what's more scientific and less scientific, and that linear interpretation becomes a circle, a continuum that includes both ancient practices and modern interpretations, but they are done according to principle. And the example I always use is the making of causticum. Right. And so if you go to chronic diseases and you see in the materia medica about the making of causticum, Hahnemann, if you look at just the Hahnemann remedies, right, the remedies that Hahnemann himself added in, so calcarea carbonicum, silica, hepar sulf, and causticum, right? And you look at the choice of the materials, the foundational or base materials that he was using, he was not necessarily choosing sort of what you would buy at the chemistry supply, those materials which would have been readily available or at least accessible to someone who was considered one of the most accomplished chemists of his day. But rather, he went back and used a more ancient process of making things. So he might burn eggshells, or in the case of causticum, he's burning marble in order to get lime, right? And for the chemists out there, it's not lime as we think of it. It's the burnt marble. Anyway, but my point is that when you get to the footnote to 273, he says, and there's no footnote in 273, 5th edition of the Organon. So this is between the 5th and the 6th. And I think because he goes into more detail in his assertion in 273 between the 5th and the 6th edition, it would make sense that he gave an explanation as to why he was considering this, dual remedy. So it wasn't that you need two medicines to solve a problem. He says two substances. Now I'm quoting, from the footnote to 273 in the 6th edition. Two substances opposite to each other, united into neutral natrum and middle salts by chemical affinity in unchangeable proportions, as well as sulfurated metals found in the earth and those produced by technical art in constant combining proportions of sulfur and alkaline salts and earths, for example, natrum sulf and calcareous sulf, as well as those others produced by distillation of alcohol and acids made together with phosphorus, be considered as simple medicinal substances by the homeopathic physician and used for patients. Let me translate. What he's saying is when you are working in the mineral kingdom, when you are working with these basic chemical constituents, what you may see as a single element there will be times when these elements can be combined, and when you combine them, you will get a consistent product. So in today's language, we know you've got a cation and an anion to create a stable element, right? So you've got like natrum and sulfur, you've got sodium and sulfur, or you have, sodium and chloride, natrum muriaticum. And what he's saying is these two elements actually combine as they become a single element. Okay? And then he goes on.
Like a duck heart and liver?
You're talking like a turducken?
No, I'm talking about Oslica
I know. That was funny. That's, we're coming up to Thanksgiving. Look, you see how that just rolled right off there?
Very good.
And so then he goes on, and
on the other
hand, and he's talking about, he says, the so-called alkaloids of plants, and he talks about chinin, strychnine, morphine, that these cannot be accepted by the homeopathic physician as simple medicines, always the same, because if you're going to combine, he says the alkaloids are not the only constituents of the plants. And so, in other words, this footnote is describing the intentionality that Hahnemann had that he hadn't told us about. So you get it when you read his letters to Bonninghausen, what he's trying to say. I think anyway, and I definitely appreciate input on this, I think he was talking about the beginning of understanding these mineral salts. Now, granted, by the time he's doing that, he had already introduced these salts in chronic diseases. So that would have been from 1828 onwards. But I think he was working out sort of how strict can one be about, like, what does it mean to have a single substance or a salt? Does that make sense?
I do. It makes me, as you were saying that, I was doing a little drift, as I do, I was staring out the window.
Because I bore you.
No, not at all, my sweet.
Thank you.
But I was thinking Iris Bell thoughts and Connecticut physicist thoughts, Connecticut conference physicist thoughts, and the statement that the curative response comes from within the organism is very important in this conversation, isn't it?
Totally.
Because the remedy is the key.
Yeah.
It's the key for the lock. And it's got to be the right key. Similars, right?
Yeah.
And so, that message, that impression that is made upon the vital force, to which the vital force then reacts against by its primary action and then stresses back against as its secondary action, is the thing that creates or stimulates the curative response.
You got it.
And so, immediately, maybe if it's the metaphor that I've given or the statement that I've just made is backed up by the latest science.
Yeah.
Basic science when it comes to homeopathy. And so I'm thinking to myself, is it therefore at all possible that the vital force can respond to a scattergun approach as opposed to a single message?
No. Well, you're going to have me skip. We'll get there in just a minute.
What do you mean?
Hold on, because I've got my whole, I have all of my notes. So I put time into this preparation. You, on the other hand, are watching sport on YouTube. How many times have you watched the rugby match we saw last weekend?
Once.
Oh, you're so full of it. How many times have you watched it, seriously?
The game?
The game.
Once.
You haven't seen a recording?
I watched it once on YouTube.
And once live. Okay, so only twice. How many times have you watched the segment of us that you can see us amongst the 60,000 people?
100.
That's really funny. Anyway, so you've got Hahnemann, right? I gave you the Hahnemann letters, the organon. How about Kent? Now, I'm not a super fan. I'm just a minor fan, but go to lecture 6 in Kent's lectures on philosophy. Lecture 6 is the single remedy. So I'll just give you a couple of, quotes here. The single remedy must be employed. The idea of giving 2 or more medicines at once or in alternation is a violation of the law of similars. How about that?
Yeah, baby.
Kent. Then Kent says, he warns, he says, if you mix medicines or alternate them, you can never know which has acted or whether either has acted in accordance with the law. We talked about that before. It confuses the case. But this is the one thing that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
No 2 diseases can exist in the body at the same time. Therefore, no 2 similar remedies can act at once. One single, simple substance will remove the totality of symptoms. This, to me, is...
See, that's the heart of it.
That's the heart of it, right? And so you have to go to...
Well, you simply ask the question, how does a biological response occur from a message coming from, that
from
is
everywhere.
essentially a bottle of nothing?
So for people who are trying to kind of like really grok this, go to the organon, go to aphorisms like... If you go to the... from, say, 20...
Yeah, it's through the 30s.
29.
Yeah, through the 30s.
Yeah, 29 to 48, right? What 48 is complicated disease? 48. Yeah.
Because, my friends, you can't have 2 similar diseases in the body at the same time.
It's impossible. So I think just to reiterate, right? So what we're talking about is...
annihilates the other.
That's right. One annihilates the other. And you can't, because we're not recording this with video, you don't see the hand gesture I do. Always when the larger similar, the
That's
energy...
what I
do you do the same thing?
Yeah, I usually
you make
do
a
this,
fist
but I go,
and then a hand.
I put a fist up from underneath the camera, underneath the shot, and then I go...
I do the same thing. Oh, no, mine is a more gentle. Yours a true annihilation. But
nom 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 nom.
So you do like the Pac-Man.
Yeah,
you got the Pac-Man annihilation. So just to reiterate, I know that there's, all this conversation out there about giving all these remedies and you have to do it, blah, blah, blah. But I think if we're going to look at homeopathy based on the principles on which it was established, which is the laws of the universe and only similars cure, right? So go to your organon and read the similar, dissimilar diseases aphorism starting from like 26 all the way through to, well, actually, and I like 28 is the one, how you just don't need the mechanism of action. Yeah. Anyway, but just go through to 49 because he talks about how only similars cure, dissimilar disease doesn't cure, and most importantly for this conversation, only one disease can live in the organism at the same time. Now, yes, there are complex multimiasmatic diseases, but that's where totality comes in because even though those complicated diseases are there, sometimes you can see the whole disease, but the progression, right? This is where you see in aphorism 171, because what we're not talking about the simillimum fallacy that you've got to find the person's soulmate remedy. This is not that. This is just one remedy at a time. Over time, people can have multiple remedies. How many remedies does a person have in their lifetime? I would have had, I don't know, maybe I've had 30 different remedies in over 30 years, including all the acutes and stuff. Maybe not even that many. Maybe 30, I don't know. In 30 years. How about you?
Lycopodium.
Pulsatilla.
I'm kidding. That was just humour, folks.
That was homeo humor.
Yeah, no, Bryonia and Pulsatilla and a bit of nitric acid.
And the occasional Staphysagria.
and a little bit of Arita carbonica.
But I think it's really important because there are all these different ways. Like homeopathy has morphed and changed depending on who's kind of running the conference and trying to make the cash. When at the end of the day, homeopathy hasn't changed. People's interpretations have changed, or the buzzwords changed.
Yeah.
Now everybody's trying. Like I just saw something. Somebody sent me an email. A promotional email that's going around that this person who's a homeopath is teaching. Oh, I wish I had the email in front of me. Like using homeopathy as a detox strategy for alpha-gal. I was just
detoxing from alpha-gal.
Like what does that even mean? Right? I mean, it's just crazy. Anyway, but so at the end of the day, aphorism 171 says that, well, hang on, let me just, since I have an organon
multiple conversations and multiple remedies in succession.
Yep. Given appropriately. Wait, let me get
Given appropriately.
Hang on. 171. In chronic diseases that are not venereal, therefore most usually arising from psora, one often needs to employ several antipsoric remedies in succession to bring about a cure, each to be homeopathically selected in accordance with the result of an examination of the group of symptoms that remain after the previous means has completed its action. It's so key. Like, it can't be any clearer.
Have you done it?
That's it. Our 100th episode.
No, have you done it?
Have I done what?
Given a combination remedy.
Have I ever given a combination remedy? No. But I have alternated in really big acute cases at the end of life.
Right.
I mean, look, we used the example recently about how when I stepped on the ground bee nest, you threw a bunch of stuff in a glass and threw it down my gullet. And then when I was stable, then you said, oh, do whatever. Yeah. Whatever the appropriate remedy was.
Do you think are there safety issues from using two remedies at a time or alternating?
I mean, if you're talking about someone, like if somebody was in an accident and you were alternating, say, arnica and aconite, when you're in someone's in an acute state, right? The vital force is just looking for survival. I think that's really different. So like as the totality gets smaller, it might, you're moving faster and faster. Like if we had homeopathy in the emergency room, like, our dear friend Lisa Amarine, she would love nothing more than to be an ER homeopath, right? That's her thing. I would imagine that there would be times for sure, right? Because you're moving quickly, you're watching the symptoms, and sometimes you're having to really navigate. It's like you're threading a needle. But the average person is not doing that. And the average homeopath who's dealing with people's real, like chronic issues is not doing that. And the cases, actually the hardest cases in my practice and that we see in our clinic are the cases where they've had too many remedies. The vital force is confused. And even worse, and I guess we'll kind of finish with this, but like, the big thing in my research now is on pans and pandas, and it's the cases are hard. Well, clean cases are not as hard. Clean cases are fairly straightforward, but the cases that have been treated a lot with homeopathy, but the ones that are almost I don't want to be negative, but the ones that we struggle with the most are the ones where people aren't understanding the philosophy. In other words, Hahnemann, this turning into an organon lesson, but if you look at aphorisms 210 to 230, where he's talking about mental and emotional disease, in that is what do you do in a case of mania? And anyone who understands the presenting complaints of someone who's in a panda's flare understands that quote unquote mania, right, with the dilated pupils and all of that. Well, what Hahnemann says is, the cure of the mania is not the cure of the deeper disease. It has to be immediately followed up with the appropriate antipsoric medicine. And then you need to follow that case. And so the management of acute flare-ups becomes really critical, because the more you treat the acute without understanding the chronic, the heavier the lift is in the end. And so that's where it worries me. That's why, I'm happy to, spend our Friday afternoons doing this podcast, which, is time we could be spending seeing clients or, whatever. We do this for free for the community as a way to hopefully impart some knowledge so that folks are inspired to think about homeopathy in a way that they can do a great job with Hahnemannian principles, right? Like, actually, I know I said that was the last thing. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Yeah. So, in a meeting recently, the person who scours Facebook and then tells me the things she think I can handle before I cry, but she said that there's a lot of chatter, in Facebook groups where people say, I was treated by a classical homeopath and I didn't get good results. And I really understand that. And I think that what that says is that
is that about classical homeopathy or the homeopath?
It's about the education.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with this quote unquote classical homeopathy. It has to do with learning homeopathy. Like homeopathy, it's a thing. And so in closing for our 100th episode, just once again to say, we want to inspire, not to say don't do that or your way is bad, but rather to say there is a way. There is a way that has had 230 years of evidence behind it. And we need to take the time and the energy to learn how to do this and to do it well. And to really, to pick it apart, to follow the guidelines. And when we do that, we can help people.
Well, there's a simplicity and an elegance.
Simple elegance. It's like Coco Chanel.
Coco Chanel?
Coco Chanel.
She'll do me.
No, she won't.
I think we better go.
Note. Hey, everybody. We'll see you for the next 100 episodes.
Ciao.
See you guys.
You know about arnica. You've helped with a cough before. But what happens when your go-to remedies stop working? When symptoms move, change shape, or just don't make sense anymore? That's when it's time to get help from someone trained. At Homeopathy Help Now, you get real homeopathic care with student practitioners supervised by certified professionals. It's thoughtful, safe, and affordable. Visit homeopathyhelpnow.com to request a consultation today.